Could be a bit of a long one tonight. I just I just logged into Twitter where I go for kind of the most immediate access to international affairs and the many social media accounts that governments of different countries use on Twitter to transmit current events, the relevant information on what's happening in the international community. They are very much a community unto themselves. They all talk to each other. It's a little bit strange because the average person, you can reply, but they don't. It's not social networking, put it that way. It's broadcasting and it's advertising, political aspects of what's happening in the international community, including the war in Ukraine. And I thought that I wanted to talk a little bit about what we've seen recently and up to a couple of years ago through social media portals. More recently, when the war in Ukraine started, what happened very quickly was a sudden influx of horrific war porn. The vengeance, the cruelty, the wrath, the stench of aggression and violence was so pungent that it baffled me that these networks were allowing what is essentially a breach of their community standards. So whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it doesn't really matter. They have a policy against the glorification of violence. And yet world leaders all across the globe are talking about their war all the time. The Ukraine Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dmytro Kuleba, and Zelensky, the leader of Ukraine, were using social media to ask the world for weapons. Death machines to kill with on social media. It blew my mind. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I couldn't believe that it was permitted simply because it's they're politicians, or it's a war which is somehow legalized murder. And on it went. It was unbearable. I found it to be a form of psychological terrorism where one representative of a country can come out and say things about another country and ask the whole world to crush and punish everything about that country. And I'm talking about Russia. It doesn't really matter which side of the fence you sit on in that argument, Ukraine versus Russia. It's more about what I'm talking about is about what we've witnessed as a result of it. And these government officials were permitted to get up there and call for sanction after sanction after sanction, to call for heavy weapons, more heavy weapons, billions and billions and billions of dollars. It was and still is completely insane. It's batshit fucking crazy. And there's 13-year-olds online. And this is what our politicians are teaching our kids. You just come online and ask for weapons. Yeah, just ask for them from anywhere, and you can actually call to other people to crush somebody else. You can ask other people to deprive somebody of food. And at no point did anyone sort of think to themselves, well, okay, you might be mad at Vladimir Putin or you might be mad at Russia as a political body, but to be calling for its total destruction, that's 146 million people, 146 million Russians and citizens of Russia. They were totally oblivious to the impact that they were having on the human rights of the people who inhabit the country. And a lot of the sanctions do affect the lifestyle and the economy, the lifestyle of people living in Russia and their economy. If they hit them hard enough, they'd go into a massive recession, and then you've got innocent people. So basically what they do is they sanction the country and put the onus on the leader of the country, Vladimir Putin, if he wants to save his people or not. It's just wicked. Regardless, they're using social media to do it. Every day you can follow any government in the world, where they're flying to next, who they're seeing next, what their plans are, what they're talking about. At no point have we asked. They have their own community. And then they have communities above that community. Then they have special commissions and councils and all the rest of it that are unelected officials. Unelected. Ursula von der Leyen from the European Commission. She's unelected. And yet she has tremendous influence on what the decisions that Europe makes as a cohesive body of nations. The things I've seen are just so reprehensible. It's wounding. It's assault. It's psychologically traumatizing. But it's okay with social media networks and CEOs and their safety team for government officials to come online and brag about the billions of dollars worth of weapons that they've just sent another country. They're American networks, founded in America, the United States, the United Satans of America. And when you start seeing through the lens of detached wisdom, I suppose, or just some life experience, and you see this stuff for what it really is, you can start to understand a little bit why Iran, for example, refers to America as the United Satans, the Great Satan. Look what they do. Look what they've done with social media networks. The double standards are through the roof. Politicians and government officials are allowed to glorify violence and do arms deals in broad daylight. And the citizens of Ukraine and the people, some of the army, posting war porn videos, torture videos of young Russian sons of mothers in Russia who probably don't want to be there, being tortured and kneecapped by the Ukrainian army. That was back in March. And social media allowed this video. It circulated for a good couple of weeks. As somebody who spent a lot of time working on national television, and even just outside of that, it was obvious that there were broadcasting protocols that had to be followed. And if the show you were on breached any of those protocols, they pull it off the air. Because there's a duty of care there that's being exercised to the audience, people watching. Social media doesn't have that duty of care when it comes to the international community or their wars. I don't even know why we're still calling them wars. It should just be called mass murder opportunities, because really that's what it is. I was actually recently silenced on Twitter. For 5 days I've had my account locked. I think I can get back in tomorrow. Because I addressed the leader of Germany, Olaf Scholz, who's a particularly grumpy individual, doesn't look like a very nice person either. And he had said that the only way to win in Ukraine was on the battlefield. And I felt that that was an incredibly irresponsible thing for the leader of a country to say, because all of them, in my view, should be working towards peace, a peace agreement. They should all be in support of a cessation of hostilities. They should all be in support of a ceasefire. But that's not, they don't care about the death and the carnage. They don't care if civilians die and kids are blown apart and lives ruined forever. That's secondary to them. Yeah, because they're fucking crazy. Their first priority is protecting their assets in Ukraine. They're like the foster child that parents fight over, or the grandparents fight the parents of the child for custody. That's what's going on, and they're tearing the child apart. And this Olaf Scholz said that it was the only way to win it was on the battlefield. As if winning it is the main thing and not simply shelving the idea of fighting altogether and coming to some sort of agreement. So I said to him, I can't remember my exact words, but very close to this, that his mindset was demented, murderous and foul. And that because he had no view of peace in Ukraine and wanted to continue murdering people, that he deserves the death penalty. And what I was thinking of when I said it was the fact that in Florida, in America, there are people on death row have done less than that. Nicholas Cruz went into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, shot 17 kids. He's an autistic and had no idea what he was doing, spaced out and just went for it. And he had to face a death row trial. He'll be in prison for the rest of his life. But these world leaders can get up there and recklessly encourage mass murder, the continuance of mass murder and suffering and pain. And I got my account locked for pointing it out. Social media defending a world leader who wants more death, more violence, and more murder, because I suggested that he should deserve the death penalty. That's what this is. Politicians on social media, why are they here? Why are they here? There was a good few years there where they weren't, back in the days when it started. They weren't on social media. They started turning up when Obama did to win his elections. Why? To win elections, to get close to the people, to try and be friendly, as if that's appropriate. And they set the worst example of human behaviour in the world. Normally we fight our battles online with some troll or some asshole who's giving us a hard time, or stalking or harassment or something. These are politicians, every second post they make is disgusting. Because they're spiritually bankrupt. They're always having a go at each other. They're childish beyond imagination. And they cause division, conflict and division, constant conflict and division in the internet space of social networking, where Facebook says, stay connected with family and friends. Oh, and if you're interested, you can watch politicians fight and get into it. Then you can fight with each other. They might be wanting money. They might be wanting weapons. They might show you war porn. Hope you have a good time. So these networks can't even advertise properly. It's all false advertising. And there's 13-year-olds watching it all. So that's the most recent general debacle, horrific debacle that's occurred on social media. A couple of years ago, for the last couple of years, it was the whole COVID thing. And in Melbourne, Australia, it was the worst thing that I've ever seen to that point. Was completely rabid and entitled ignoramuses attacking other people online for having their own thoughts on the matter. And that a politician like Dan Andrews, is it human? I'm not quite sure if he's human. Is he some type of animal or some type of artificially intelligent program? Because he's definitely a dictator. And to know that he was being supported. Then Facebook lapped it up. They all made billions of dollars off the advertising. Social media giving a voice to these politicians using social media to run things. And it's a public/private company. It's like the politicians being constantly on TV. As if we want to see them. They just sort of assume that they should intrude with threats, human rights violations, and what are most people doing? Carrying the internet around with them all the time in an iPhone. It's always on. And if it's not, it's in the airwaves. So I can think of nothing worse than having Dan Andrews in my house in my iPhone. I don't have an iPhone. When I log off and I turn my modem off, they don't exist here for me. So anyway, I think that as people all over become more aware of the reality of what's happening through social media, and the things that are being allowed in the international community and our local politicians, the types of behaviours that they exhibit and get away with, hopefully more will be done about it. I firmly believe that politicians shouldn't be on social media. It's a public space. The networks were built for the people. And they all data mine us anyway, So whether it's the Russia and Ukraine debate or COVID or Dan Andrews or federal government, all over the world, it's almost as if social media's purpose was to bring life to political strife instead of calm the waters. And all the leaders are in there contributing to that political strife. They're nuts. It's like they're like kids in a playground that start fighting because somebody took somebody's ball, and instead of going through all the necessary steps to get the ball back or talk about it and try and figure something out, they just sort of automatically resort to demanding billions of dollars for killing machines so that they can go and kill all the other kids until they get their ball back. That's what's happening. And it's been in full view for 8 months and the last 2 years. The silencing and control that governments exercise on social media against opinions that they don't like, raiding homes, threatening people with starvation, or experimental injections that had already killed people. It's incredible how quickly most people move on from the information that comes through, where you can clearly see what they're doing. But as soon as something more entertaining comes up or the next drama, they'll quickly jump on that and forget about what they were just talking about for the last 8 months or 2 years. It's all, and even that in itself is sickening, because to them, it's all like it's entertainment. It's just an opportunity for people to jump in and have an opinion, and then they kind of get off on it, and then they move on to the next thing to have an opinion on. Meanwhile, lives are destroyed, economies are destroyed, inflation skyrockets. I'd be really interested to see the role that social media networks have played in inflation. I'd be very interested to see overall, when you factor in all the likes and all the shares and all the things people say and what the world leaders do and how they move, and they are responsible because it's not a TV. They're publishing networks. They publish what I say. They publish what you say. They just hold, somehow, miraculously, you're responsible for what you say. But you're not the one publishing it. They call it self-publishing, but it's not. All you do is hit the button on your computer or on your phone to send to them. They're the ones who then actually host it. So they're like the TV station instead of the show. And they have absolutely no limit to what they will allow those above the law to get away with at our expense. Hopefully something will get done about it.